The topic is what is subnets or what is subnetworks, what is private or public subnets, CIDR calculations, how to calculate total addresses and usable host from a CIDR number, and how to calculate CIDR number from total addresses and usable hosts. So what is a subnet? Subnet is a network inside a network. Think of it like an organization's network in a large city. Subnets are different neighborhoods within that city. The purpose of subnet is to divide large network into smaller, manageable segments. This offers several benefits such as efficiency, security, IP address management. For efficiency, it makes routing network traffic more efficient as data packets only need to travel within their local subnet before they are routed to a different one. For security, you can apply specific security rules to a different subnet, isolating certain devices or services. It helps conserve and organize the available IP addresses. The purpose of subnet is to provide more efficiency, security, and to isolate the services that are offered to members. In an organization that has leaders, interns, managers, team leads, so the importance of subnets increases as certain confidential members should or must be accessing a subnet that is not accessible by other members. So the subnets are a network inside a network, and the leaders or confidential members access the subnet for more security and efficiency. How it works: an IP address like 192.168.1.10 is split into two parts, that is, a network portion and a host portion. The subnet mask or CIDR notation tells devices where the split is. All devices in the same subnet must have the same network portion. So now what is private versus public subnets? The distinction usually comes up when using cloud platforms or cloud environments like AWS, VPCs, or virtual private clouds. But it is all actually based out of internet accessibility. The feature is internet access. For public subnet, direct internet route via an internet gateway. For private subnet, there is no direct route to the internet gateway. So it doesn't have internet access unless we use NAT gateway for public internet. For accessibility, in public subnet, resources in a public subnet can be reached from a public internet. That would be a web server. For private subnet, resources are not accessible from the public internet. So, example, it would be like a database server. Outbound internet for updates or downloads. For public subnet, it is a direct access. For private subnet, it needs a NAT gateway to access the public internet. Typical resources in a public subnet would be web servers, load balancer, bastion hosts. In private subnet, it would be database servers, application servers, internal tools. For the simple analogy, it would be like public subnet. It's like a front door. People from the internet can walk up and ring the bell to communicate with services you want. For private subnet, it is like a secured living room. Only the traffic you explicitly allow from the public subnet, the front door, can reach it. Now let's understand CIDR calculations. CIDR stands for Classless Inter Domain Routing. It is a standard way to specify the size of a network or a subnet. A CIDR address is written as an IP address followed by a slash or a slash and a number. Example, it would be 192.168.1.0/24. The slash number /n, this number n is the network prefix length. It tells you how many bits out of 32 total bits in an IPv4 addresses are used for network portion. The remaining bits are used for host portion. You must be knowing that IPv4 has a total length of 32 bits. Network prefix length /n says how much length has already been utilized by the IP address. So it would be like if it is mentioned /24, it means that 192.168.1. It means that 24 bits already been utilized and the remaining bits are 8 that are yet to be utilized. So for the remaining 8 bits, it can be made a subnet. So the rule would be the number of available IP addresses is calculated using the formula 2 power h, where h is the number of host bits. What are the calculation steps? First would be find the host bits. Subtract the CIDR number n from the 32 of the total bits in an IPv4 address, which would be h equals 32 minus n. 32 is the total length minus n. Second would be find total addresses, which is calculating 2 power h, which is like the usual calculation of 2 power. Third would be finding usable addresses. To subtract 2 from the total as the first address, network ID, and the last address, broadcast address, are reserved. 2 addresses are already reserved, that is for network ID and broadcast address. So it would be usable host 2 power h minus 2. Total addresses are 2 power h. For the usable one, it would be minus 2 of that. So the CIDR, the table shows the CIDR /n, which we already know would be if it is /24. So it would be host bits, that would be h equals 32 minus 8. So 8 would be 2 power h. H is from what we got from the host bits, 2 power 8, which equals 256. So total addresses is 256 and minus 2 of that would be usable host, which is 254, and so on for other CIDR notations as well. The thing to note is that the smaller the CIDR number, example /16, the more host bits you have and the larger the subnet. The larger the CIDR number, example /30, the fewer host bits you have and the smaller the subnet. So now let's calculate CIDR number /n when we know how many hosts or how many total addresses we need. To find CIDR prefix /n, we need to do the calculation backwards, which would be account for the reserved addresses. In every subnet, 2 addresses are reserved, which you already know, that is like network ID and the broadcast address. The formula would be total addresses equals usable hosts plus 2. For example, it would be if we need 50 usable hosts, we need a block of 52 addresses. The second step would be next power of 2. IP addresses always comes in blocks. We must know that it is the power of 2. It would be like 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, so on. You must find the smallest power of 2 that can fit your total addresses. From our previous example of 52 addresses, the next power of 2 is 64. Since 2 power 6 equals 64, your host bit is 6. Step 3 would be subtracting from 32. Since IPv4 address has total bits of 32 bits, just subtract your host bit h from 32 to find your network prefix n. So the formula would be n equals to 32 minus h. Calculation would be 32 minus 6, which equals 26. So the result would be /26 subnet. So here is the table that shows how to calculate that. So first it is usable host needed, total addresses, host bits, CIDR result. If usable hosts needed are from 1 to 2, 3 to 6, 7 to 14, so on until 127 to 254, we take the total addresses 2 power h, that is 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. So usable host needed table signifies or simplifies that if the range of the host you need is from 1 and 2, so we take that as 4. 4 it would be as 2 of the 1 out of 2, and plus 2 total host you need or usable host you need are between 63 to 126, anything between that, we take the next power of 2. It is 63, 65, 70, 80. The next power of nearest would be 128, higher than that. So we take that as in the total addresses. So on, like if the range is from 127 until 254, anything between that numbers, we take the next 2 power of 2, which is like 256. So on, like if it is 7 to 14, if any usable host we need are from between those, so we take the next power of 2, that is like 16. So it would be 2 power 8 equals 256, 2 power 7 equals 128, 2 power 6 equals 64. The power of 2 that gives total address, we take the power as host bits. For the CIDR result, it would be total bits minus the host bit. If the usable hosts needed are between 127 to 254, we take total addresses simply as 256, which is as the power of 2 power 8. So we know that 2 power 8 equals 256. So we take that 8 of that power and we subtract 32 minus 8, which gives slash 24. So we got the CIDR result as 24, and so on. Like for other ranges between 63 to 126, we take the nearest further value of 2 power h, which is like 128, which is 2 power 7. The power of 2 is 7, so we subtract 7 minus 32, which gives slash 25. So it would be some range 192.64.0 point slash 24. So it would give the range something like 192.168.0 slash 24. Also, the pro tip would be, if your number of hosts is exactly a power of 2, like if you are taking hosts that is exactly 64, you must be still adding 2 and move the next power, that is 128, because you can't fit 64 usable hosts in a 64 address block because of those 2 reserved slots. So you know that we have 2 reserved slots. So if we are taking exactly 64 to fit in, you must still have to move that further to the 2 power 7, that is 128. So to fit the 2 reserved slots. So yeah. So that was a video for today. I hope I made that topic simple. Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure to like, share, comment your thoughts if you think it was helpful. Have a great day. Bye.